This week isn't just big, it's game-changing. General Hospital.
The lights inside General Hospital had always carried a certain rhythm, a pulse that longtime viewers could almost feel without even looking at the screen. Conversations flowed, confrontations sparked, and emotions often erupted in quick, dramatic bursts. But this time, something was different. Something quieter, slower, more deliberate. Behind the camera stood Kate Mansi, and her presence reshaped the energy of the episode in ways that were impossible to ignore. From the opening scene, there was a noticeable stillness. Not the kind that signals emptiness, but the kind that invites you to lean in. Every pause felt intentional. Every glance lingered just long enough to say what words could not. It wasn't just direction, it was lived experience woven into storytelling. For Mansi, this episode wasn't simply another credit. It was personal, a story rooted in truth. When Mansi first stepped into the world of Port Charles, she carried more than just a script. She carried her own history, one tied to endometriosis, a condition often misunderstood, frequently overlooked, and rarely portrayed with authenticity on television. She remembered the moment she first heard about the storyline from Frank Valentini. It wasn't just an opportunity, it felt like a responsibility. Standing on set during the early stages of filming, script in hand, Mansi felt something shift inside her. This wasn't fiction in the usual sense. This was reality finding a voice. There were moments during rehearsal when she paused, not because something was wrong, but because something was too right. The way pain interrupted a sentence. The subtle tension in a character's body. The quiet frustration of not being understood. These weren't things you could fake convincingly without knowing them. And Mansi knew them. She worked closely with the production team, making small but meaningful adjustments, lines that felt more honest, reactions that felt more grounded. Nothing overly dramatic. Nothing exaggerated. Just truth. And truth, as it turned out, was powerful enough. Molly's world begins to shift. At the center of the episode was Molly Lansing-Davis, portrayed with remarkable depth by Kristen Viganos. Molly had always been strong, analytical, composed, someone who preferred logic over vulnerability. But this diagnosis didn't fit neatly into any argument or plan. It disrupted everything. There's a particular kind of silence that follows life-changing news. It's not empty. It's heavy, filled with questions that don't yet have answers. Mansi allowed that silence to exist. Instead of rushing Molly through grief or forcing immediate acceptance, the episode gave her space. Space to process. Space to sit with the reality that her future might not look the way she once imagined. Viewers watched as Molly struggled, not in dramatic outbursts, but in quiet, internal battles. A flicker of emotion in her eyes. A hesitation before speaking. A breath held just a second too long. It felt real because it was. Cody's response, a different kind of strength. Opposite Molly stood Cody Bell, played by Josh Kelly. In many soap storylines, moments like these are defined by grand gestures, declarations of love, promises shouted across rooms. But that's not what happened here. Cody didn't try to fix anything. He didn't interrupt. He didn't minimize. He didn't turn the moment into something about himself. He stayed. And in that choice, simple, quiet, and profoundly human, something shifted. Mansi later reflected on this dynamic, emphasizing how Cody's reaction wasn't about heroism. It was about presence. About showing up when things are uncertain, uncomfortable, and unresolved. Josh Kelly's performance captured that nuance beautifully. His expressions carried weight without needing words. A softening of his voice. A careful choice of phrasing. A willingness to listen. It redefined what strength looked like in that moment. Not dominance. Not solutions. Just understanding. Redefining a relationship. Before this episode, Molly and Cody's relationship had its own rhythm. Playful, evolving, still finding its footing. But this moment changed everything. Not dramatically, not explosively, subtly. There's something about shared vulnerability that reshapes connections. It strips away pretense and reveals what's underneath. For Molly and Cody, that meant stepping into unfamiliar territory together. There's a scene, quiet, almost understated, where the weight of the diagnosis settles between them. It's not about what's said, but what isn't. The unspoken acknowledgement that things are different now. And yet, they don't pull away. They lean in. That's where the transformation happens. Not in a single line of dialogue, but in the choice to stay connected despite uncertainty. The power of emotional honesty. What made this episode stand out wasn't just the subject matter. It was the honesty in how it was handled. Too often, stories about medical conditions become educational segments, important but distant. Informative, but not necessarily emotional. Mansi avoided that trap. Instead of focusing solely on explaining endometriosis, she focused on how it feels to live with it. The unpredictability, the frustration, the quiet grief of altered expectations, and more importantly, how it affects relationships. Cody's response became the emotional anchor of the episode. Not because he had all the answers, but because he didn't. Because he allowed himself to be present without trying to control the situation. That kind of support is rarely depicted with such clarity. It's not flashy. It doesn't demand attention. But it matters. A moment behind the camera. During one of the final takes, Mansi stood just off to the side, watching the scene unfold. There was a stillness on set, the kind that only happens when everyone knows something meaningful is being created. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to take it in. This wasn't just another episode. It was a reflection of something deeply personal, translated into a story that could reach millions. She thought about the people watching at home, those who might see themselves in Molly's experience, those who might feel understood for the first time. And she realized something simple, yet profound. This is why stories matter. The aftermath. What comes next? As the episode came to a close, it didn't offer neat resolutions or easy answers. Instead, it left viewers with something more lasting, a sense of continuity. Molly and Cody's journey isn't over. If anything, it's just beginning. Their relationship now carries a new depth, shaped by honesty and tested by reality. The question isn't whether they'll face challenges. They will. The question is how they'll face them, together or apart. And for the first time, the answer feels uncertain in a way that's grounded, not dramatic. Why this story resonates. There's a reason this episode lingers long after the credits roll. It's not because of shocking twists or dramatic reveals. It's because it feels true. Kate Mansi didn't just direct a storyline. She translated lived experience into something tangible. Something viewers could feel, not just watch. And in doing so, she reminded everyone, fans, actors, creators, what storytelling can be at its best. Not just entertainment, but connection. As conversations continue among fans of General Hospital, one thing is clear. This wasn't just another episode. It was a turning point. For Molly, for Cody, and for the kind of stories daytime television is capable of telling. And somewhere, quietly, without fanfare, it set a new standard. One built not on spectacle, but on something far more enduring. Emotional honesty.